leadership as we know it has been incomplete because we didn't have enough women in leadership. They bring a different temperament. They bring a different way of looking at things. No one avoids pain in life. The only thing you can do is choose your pain. And there are two types of pain. It's either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Then something happens. That emptiness comes again. That agitation in your spirit comes again. Why am I here? And I think every man and every woman must get to that point where they ask the question, why am I here? Why was I born? Whenever you look at your life from the lens of purpose, because the purpose for which you are born determines where you are born, what environment you grow up in, the parents, everything is all determined by purpose. People think it's airy-fairy, this purpose thing. When it bites you, nothing else matters. Like, I know this is the most important engagement of my life. Most of us are pouring into the lives of others while we are crying. You're in tears, but you're comforting others. You are giving others hope, and you're not too sure where your bread is going to come from. And that's the joy of life, is that you can touch another with whatever you have in spite of what you don't have. This is a pivotal moment in history and in time that perhaps I say one word that might inspire the future Mandela, one word that might inspire the future Einstein, one word that might solve a critical issue. If I can do that, then that moment was worth it.
Welcome to this week's episode of our Leadership Interviews ASB Speaker Series. Today we have the wonderful opportunity to speak to Max Moyo, author, leadership catalyst, teacher of simple, universal, and timeless principles of human effectiveness. Max, nice to welcome you in our studio. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to a chat.
Before I come up with my questions, maybe add what I haven't covered yet.
I think your introduction was on point. I see myself, the author part is part of the delivery. The real engagement is being a catalyst for leadership, both at a personal level, but at organizational level. And what we are communicating is, really think about it, just the simple, universal, and timeless principles of human effectiveness. In other words, I hope that every engagement I have with anyone would leave them with a nugget that can make them even more effective in the pursuit of their own purpose.
Before we go into subject topic questions, I always like to introduce the person on a more personal level. If you don't mind, I'll ask you some personal questions. What's one ordinary moment or person from childhood that still shapes you as a leader today?
So I think my grandfather, my maternal grandfather on my mom's side, has had the most impact on my life. He was an ordinary village man who never went to school, yet he learned how to read. It's the most extraordinary story because he memorized the Bible, and in the process, he just started being able to read. It's always an interesting. And so besides being just a village man, he also was an interesting preacher. And so my desire to speak started when I would watch him preach, and his ability to capture an audience. And I tell that in my book, Eighth Wonder of the World, that I literally would go into the millie fields after I've listened to my grandfather preach, and I would preach to the millies. And that was what I didn't know, was that that was a sign that I was preparing for
Wow.
my future.
And did the millies grow nicely afterwards?
Well, he had a good harvest, so maybe I did a good job.
Well, it's about the seeds that we saw, isn't it? And then we preach to them to grow. It is the
It
millies,
is. It
it's the
is indeed.
people, it's our community, it's everyone in our universe that we preach to and pray for and like to affect in a beautiful, profound, timeless, principle way of reaching their hearts and stimulating the best out of them. So, what gets you out of bed on tough mornings? What mission won't let you sleep in?
Oh, this sharing of these principles of human effectiveness. Literally, I can be exhausted. I could have had a tough week, and I'm talking a tough week, and I get home because if you've been speaking for a week, for instance, speakers will tell you this, you are drained. So normally, if when I get home and all I want to do is lie in bed, I don't want to talk to anyone. But I can promise you, if I got a phone call and somebody said, "Listen, we have a conference, our speaker did not show up. Please, can you help us?" It's as if, I don't know how it happens, but it's as if somebody has just plugged me into electricity. It's like the tiredness disappears and I'm up and about, and I'll figure out what to say to that crowd while I'm driving there.
Wow. Wow.
So, probably the better way of saying this is that purpose will get you out of bed. So I think that people think it's airy-fairy, this purpose thing, like, oh yeah, purpose. But actually, when it bites you, nothing else matters. Like, I know this is the most important engagement of my life. Everything else in my life comes second best.
Yeah, yeah. I think everyone who has found the purpose has the same. And I think I shared the story with you just not long ago. I just was standing under the shower and was thinking about why do I still pay the fees for my African Speaker Bureau domain? And suddenly the purpose hit me and I looked up and said, seriously? And since then I'm thriving, feel like 25 again, and I can't stop playing. I can't even call it work, even if I have to learn 16 different softwares at the same time. The interesting when you say a speaker, after so many speaking engagements, I am very connected to many artists, and on their tour, they actually can't go home because they are so full of adrenaline and so full of, I don't know what actually the hormones are when you are on stage, but they can't go to bed. They have to engage with other people afterwards and go out. So how do you calm down after such a beautiful session on stage? How do you ground again?
So there's a lot of reflection for me, and it's true. So I know that after speaking, I can't eat. I'm pumped up. So sometimes you actually sit down and you almost need to cool yourself off. But I am reflective after the session. And the reflection is often around, did I communicate the message that needed to be communicated? And often that message is beyond the title that the client might have given you. There's a deeper, some call it a spiritual message, some might call it a consciousness message, but there's always often when I'm speaking to people, they'll come to me afterwards and say, it's as if you were talking to me. It's as if you know what I'm going through. And I say, well, I don't know it with my mind, but my spirit knows it. And it is that reflection that I sit down and I almost communicate with my spirit to say, did I really communicate the message that needed to be communicated? Or a better way of putting it, the message for such a time as this. Because I believe that every engagement that I have, there is an important message that's due for that season. And that every client who engages with me is because there is an important message for them. It's almost like they have an appointment with destiny. So often I tell people that, it's not so much about the money. while money is important, but actually when I'm up on stage, I don't care
Yeah.
much about that. This is a pivotal moment in history and in
Yes.
time that perhaps I say one word that might inspire the future Mandela, one word that might inspire the future Einstein, one word that might solve a critical issue that an organization is facing, and they might be able to explode after that and do amazing things. If I can do that, then that moment was worth it.
Wow, this is so beautiful, and um, it happened often to me in my life, and probably to you even more often because you're on stage and I'm not. That people come much later in life to me and said, "This what you said there or did there years ago, this changed my life, and you gave me this and that and the other." So I think this is the most beautiful gift that no money can bring to you. So of course, money is a nice compensation for the time that we give to people, but the purpose and the message that we give and plant the seeds in other people's hearts and lives, I think this is, yeah, this is, and I feel our generation is just called again to step on the leadership stage. That's why I went back from retirement or whatever, semi-retirement, back into the African Speaker Bureau to present people like you and give people who are in need in the corporate sector and in the private sector and in wherever they are, the chance to connect even deeper to you and give you a larger audience. We have so much still to give. So let's do this together for the next 60 years.
Awesome. To the next 60 years, I agree.
Absolutely. We just touched on our age a little bit. So you often say after 50, you're fixing something. What did you choose to fix first and why?
I think, first of all, the discovery, actually, it wasn't me. I must give credit to my younger brother. We were having a conversation, and he was, so he's fixing his car, and I have to fix my pool. And then we start talking about what happens after 50. And then we realize, man, everybody we know is fixing something. It's either your house, it's your car, or it's your health. But I think, but I think that it was a moment that I realized that it's true. And it's true in the sense that there are those things that we are fixing. But perhaps at a deeper level, the one thing that we miss in that age is fixing our lives in terms of our purpose. Because if you think about it, most of us, by the time we get to our 50s, we've moved up the corporate ladder. And in the corporate sense, we are thinking about retirement. But the reality of the matter is this, is that the corporate might retire you. But your life is not the corporate. And so I think that 50s is a good time to really start thinking seriously about the future and about what you want. In fact, I think after 50, you begin to realize that perhaps most of these things that we have chased when we're younger are not as important as impact, as contribution. And if we take it to the African, the famous saying, umtu ngumtu ngabantu, that Ubuntu concept. The Ubuntu concept really, if you think about it at a deeper level, is about human effectiveness. It is really about human effectiveness. It is about excellence. So in a home, as a son, I contribute to the home. When I was a young boy, my father would say, when I'm not at home, you are the father of this home. So you make sure the kettle are looked after, everything is looked after. But they will tell you that it's not about looking after what's yours. It's also about looking after the neighbors, making sure that the community is well. And there's a famous saying, that you know, and I can't remember the exact words, but if a community really fails to look after a child, that child will come back and burn the village.
Yeah.
In the sense that, which means if you look after me, I
Yeah.
care about you. If you don't look up after me, I don't care about you. So if we look after each other, then the community as a whole progresses. Humanity progresses. Or put it nicely, as the Americans would say, is it the Marines? We leave no
Yeah.
men behind. Yeah, we leave no men behind. And I think in your 50s, you're beginning to think more about that, and maybe fairly, because you've gained so much, and maybe in your 50s, you suddenly realize you've got so much to give. Whereas before, maybe you were just trying to take. We are competing, now it's like, what can I give?
Very touching what you're saying, because so many children are left behind. And this is probably, I don't know, maybe one of the causes why our cities are burned or why our world is burned, because we forgot to care about the next generation. And this is in corporate, where leaders often don't look for the successors. And this is in our villages or in our cities, rather. Maybe the village will work a little bit better still. But yeah, very true. What I often realize is that our passion is very often directly linked to our anger. Um, when did you last feel inner agitation that announces a new season? What changed after you listened to it?
It's interesting. Steve Jobs speaks about connecting the dots backwards. So when I look at my life, on average, that's how it has worked. I tend to connect the dot backwards. So, for instance, a huge turning point in my life happened in 2005 when I got retrenched as a sales director of an insurance company. That was the year where I started asking the more important question: what is life all about? Am I supposed to just go to school, get a good job, move up the corporate ladder, make lots of money, buy a car, buy houses, and then what? And so the real journey to purpose for me began there, where I started asking the question, why am I here? Or even better still, how is the world a better place because I exist? So when you get retrenched at 40, it's 40 years old, I mean, you're in the prime. I got 2 little kids, and suddenly I'm unemployed. And then I spent a whole year at home. I remember the joy of driving the cars and taking them back to West Bank, and calling the bank to say, you can come and take your house because I can't pay the bond, and the pain of pulling kids out of private school. That same pain that could have destroyed another man became the crucible from where my purpose and my passion really clashed. And we got to say, well, this becomes the fuel that pushed me towards searching for, and I wrote the book, Who Moved My Ladder? But actually what I was trying to get at is, where is my ladder? Why am I here? And I think every man and every woman must get to that point where they ask the question, why am I here? Why was I born? In fact, if you think about it, Jay, I've even asked the question, why was I born in 1966? Why not 1866? And then I got an answer. My answer was very simple. The talents and gifts that I possess would have been useless in 1866. Currently, the world has got problems to which you and I, our talents and gifts are the solution.
Amen to that, brother.
So think about it. You're from Germany. Think about it. You're from Germany. I'm from Zimbabwe. What are the chances, Jay, that we would be talking to each
Yes,
other
so
today?
true, so true. Yeah,
Isn't it amazing? From one continent to another, and suddenly purpose brings us
yeah.
together. And because of our getting together, there are people who are going to be touched through Africa Speakers
Yes.
Bureau. But when you were growing up in Germany somewhere, you would have never even imagined.
I think this is what many people have to look into their lives as well. Definitely, I did this in my life as well. Whenever there's a crisis, just look for the opportunity. When we look in the seasons of leadership that you are also sharing about, you say there are the 4 seasons of leadership or the 4 seasons of lives. Tell us more about the 4 seasons of lives. Providential, searching, success, significance.
Awesome. I get excited when I think about those seasons, because what the seasons of life help us do is sort of make sense of our lives. Otherwise, what happens is that you're just alive. And so, think about it. The first 20 years of your life are not of your own doing. You were born without your permission, to parents you did not choose, to a country you didn't choose, a nationality you didn't choose, a gender you didn't choose, a body you didn't choose. So everything you just, this is me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and for the next 20 years, your parents decide where you live. They decide what, if it's you go to church or you don't go to church, what school you go to, all those. But you get to about 17, somewhere about 16, 17. And if anyone wants to be honest, that's where there's an agitation in your spirit. You sadly don't want to be at home. Not because your parents are bad parents at all. No, it's not. There's something in you that just wants to, you want to be free. Maybe that's the word. And so most of us, the first chance we get to leave home, we would leave. And I've seen this with kids who come from rich homes. They would insist that they want to leave home. And the parents are saying, but you have a car here, you don't have to put gas in it. You have a house, you don't have to pay rent. Poor kids, at least we can understand. But you could live here. No, Daddy, I want to be my own man. I realized when I looked at that actually it's the season of life that's calling. Just like in the womb, everything was perfect. Think about it. Automatic feeding system, automatic extraction system, air conditioning, soundproof. I mean, this was the perfect life. And 9 months later, all hell broke loose. And you are squeezed out into this cold, huge, loud world. And literally you have to adjust. And so you get about 17 and the same thing happens again. Home is no longer where you want to be. And so you move. When you leave, think about it. Every time you change a season, you are going from the known to the unknown. You're going from the comfort zone to the risk. In fact, you discover your ability to survive. You came out of your mother's womb and you survived. For 20 years, you were surviving in a strange world. So around 20, it's like, come on, man. I don't need these two people. I think I can do, but what you're searching for, you're searching for purpose. And so that agitation you leave home. So that's season 1, providential, because you don't have a choice. It just happens. 0 to 20. Season 2, the searching season. When you leave home, mostly you don't even know where you're going. You don't know what you want to do. In fact, you are going to find out all those things. So what are you going to do? What are you going to study? I don't know. And you leave. And so you begin to discover, oh, I actually am talented in this. I'm good at that. You begin to engage with people, maybe a good professor, maybe a good teacher. You find a mentor, someone who says, young man, do this or do that. And you begin to build some sort of capability. And during that period, you also look for a life partner. There's friendships sometimes that build there that will last a lifetime. So you go on for the next 20 years until you get to about 40. And it's fascinating. I would say from about 35, you get that annoying agitation again in your spirit. You're not quite happy, but you don't know why. And people say, yeah, you got a good career, you got this. And it's like, yeah, I'm not so sure. And if you don't know about the seasons, and you and I know these things where now suddenly this guy leaves his wife and then he goes and buys a two-door Ferrari and it's almost as if he's trying to go back to being a teenager again. If you don't understand the seasons of life, one of the things that's going to happen, especially the transition from the searching years to season 3, which is the success years, if you don't get that right, you will take your dissatisfaction as this man I married is the problem. This woman I married is the problem. This boss is the problem. This company is the problem. So everybody becomes the problem. What you don't realize, all that is happening, the discomfort, is your purpose calling.
Yeah, so true.
Now, ordinarily what should happen around 40 is that now you know yourself very well. You know what you're good at. And so you enter the season between 40 and 55. I call it the success season. That's where you just are accelerating. You just put the foot to the pedal and you're trying to run up the corporate. And you and I, if you don't make it into the executive in that period, there's no hope for you. It's the executive isn't for you. So most people give up around 40. They will accept that their lives will never amount to much. And for most people, it's like, well, maybe my kids will become the success, or they actually, some even push their kids because everything that they didn't achieve, they want, to achieve through their children. While I've used the numbers 0 to 20 for providential years and then 20 to 40 for searching years, it's not cast in concrete. Some people will enter their success years at 35. Now, 35 is not so bad. You need to be careful that you don't enter your success years too early.
Why is that?
If you're not careful, you're going to run this now. So 25, you're a young general manager, 28, maybe you're a CEO. Now you're CEO for 10 years. You've done this, got the t-shirt. Now what? So a lot of times we think we're growing slowly, but actually it's not a bad thing. Because some of us are like bamboos, the bamboo tree, the bamboo. So they tell me is the first 5 to 10 years, it's not going upwards, it's going downwards. So it looks like it's going nowhere. And then it just reaches that stage where it goes. So whenever you look at your life from the lens of purpose. Because the purpose for which you are born, this is interesting, determines where you are born, what environment you grow up in, the parents, everything is all determined by purpose. Because I found out that your background is the necessary pressure cooker to prepare you for your purpose.
I like this.
And so some kid is born in abject poverty. And if they don't understand purpose, they'll think life is so unfair. I should have been born where there's a Ferrari and a Lamborghini. And no, you need that pressure and that crucible. Because where you are going, you will need to have that strength. Another kid is born in comfort. Because but the comfort is covered by something else. they need to go on and achieve something else that's different. So we are all born in the perfect environment to prepare us for a purpose. All right. So from the first season, which is providential, to the second season, that's the searching years, to the third season, which is the season of success, I find that those seasons are driven largely by what we say yes to. So if you want to live in my house, you will live by my rules. No. Okay, so you run away from home because you don't want those rules, and you get into a corporate that say, if you're going to succeed in going up this corporate ladder, you're going to have to live by the corporate's rules.
So true.
Yeah. So you run now, you get to between 40 and 55, which is the season of success. What then happens there is that you start getting everything. You got the money, you got the house, you got the cars. Now you've got, you've got all the trappings of life. It's like, well, and you look back from where you come from, and it's a good sign. You've achieved some good things. You are respected in your career. Then something happens. That emptiness comes again. That agitation in your spirit comes again. And when we don't understand, we see people, for instance, someone is CEO of a company, and one day they just get up and they quit. And then they say they'll travel across Africa on foot. It's like, what happened to you? Another one will go to some village somewhere and go put up boreholes. And you're thinking, what happened to you? That is season 4, the final season of your life, which is 55 until the grave. Human beings were never meant to retire. Human beings work until the purpose is completed. Then they rest with their ancestors. That's how it's supposed to work. You work until your purpose is completed. So I see Mandela in Parliament on his last day. And he says, I believe that everyone was born for a specific purpose. And I believe that I have done what I was born to do. And now I'm ready to go and rest with my ancestors. Wow. What powerful words.
Yeah.
And so the final phase of your life, which is the significant season, is marked by a convergence. That's the right word for it. Is convergence. You want to think about 10 rivers flowing towards the sea. And one day the 10 rivers come together and form one big river. The same is true with you as a human being when you get to 55. Everything you've ever experienced in your life, everything that you know, it comes together into this river that can pour into society, that can pour into the world. You and I can now make the world a better place by taking the combination of everything that we've experienced, everything that we have learned, and we pour it back into society. And the message, and it was a guy called, I can't remember the American speaker who wrote the book, who wrote the speech. Live full and die empty.
Yeah.
So, and then I think it was a biblical thing. Paul in the Bible, he says, I'm like a drink offering and I'm being poured. I believe strongly that you and I, our jobs is to be poured out. In fact, we're born to be used. And when we're completely used and we're empty, we can say, I have run a good fight.
Yes.
And
I love it. I love it. I think maybe African Speaker Bureau ASB is kind of a riverbed, so that we all can come together and then flow together in a beautiful stream and give water, which is one of the most essential things in life, to other people. And there's actually, when you mentioned retirement, there's
Yes.
many people don't tell you retirement is completely overrated. It is so boring. You can only drink a few cups of coffee a day. You can only eat so much, and you can only go there's often to the beach. So the significance is definitely. I realized actually after, I don't know, half a year or so, the question came: what do I do with the next 60 years? It can't be just drinking coffee. I love the example that you also shared with the tree, or with when somebody gets too quick into the next season. So I've learned, and maybe we had the same teacher who told us this. There, we are life is, or the people are like a tree. If you don't have deep roots, every wind can take you off. If your trunk is not strong enough, every
Yeah.
wind can break you. And if your crown is not large enough, you can't get all the necessary sunlight, etc. So strong roots, big trunk, and then we are there for significance to build or carry the crown. So when you say success is defined by
Awesome.
saying yes to, probably significance is then defined by saying no to. What hard no unlocked your current season?
So one of the things that I actually had to say no to is going back into corporate. And so when I left Alan Gray to do this full time, it was tough. It was tough. I mean, for the first year or two or three, maybe or four, I didn't make money at all. It was like ridiculous. Like I'm sitting there and thinking, man, I can't pay bills. I can't do anything. This is dumb. I mean, come on. Even if you went back to corporate at a junior level, you'll still make more money than you're making
Yeah.
at this. And yet somehow I stayed the course. And part of that, I think my wife also helped me quite a lot, because she just has been my cheerleader, and she just believes in me. But there's a learning when you take a journey to purpose. It's not a tarred road. It's not the, what do you call that famous highway in Germany where you can drive at the highest speed possible?
Autobahn.
That journey, you think about, there are people today who are sitting in some comfort zone, and they know in their spirits they are not happy. There is more. But to give up the money, to give up the luxury is hard. But great things, I have learned, are always on the other side of pain.
Okay.
Nothing has ever been achieved without pain. Now, the person who's sitting in their comfort zone because they're trying to avoid the pain of going into the unknown. You know what's interesting, Jay? They're trying to avoid pain, yet they are in pain.
I have a saying, saying pain
Because-
is often the gatekeeper for your biggest gain.
True. But I was telling a group yesterday, and I'm saying to them, listen to me, guys. No one avoids pain in life. The only thing you can do is choose your pain. And there are two types of pain. It's either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. There's no in between. So if you don't take that jump, if you don't go back and resuscitate Africa Speakers Bureau, you'll wake up one day when you can no longer walk and you're thinking, I should have. But there's nothing you can do about the I should have. I took the jump, and it's only now, Jay, that from a financial point of view, it's been, it hasn't been hand to mouth. But generally, for almost 10 years, I've lived from hand to mouth. Yet when I get on that stage, it just looks like, someone once said, I'm sure, Max, when you say you are broke, you probably have like 10 million in our account. And I'm sitting there thinking, you see, we have ideas about, as speakers, as writers, as, people that do the work that we do. Because we're on the podium, a lot of people associate that with financial success. Yet most of us are pouring into the lives of others while we are crying. You're in tears, but you're comforting others. You are giving others hope, and you're not too sure where your bread is going to come from. And that's the joy of life, is that you can touch another with whatever you have in spite of what you don't have.
And I think this is one day you just know, and you can't change it. You have to do this. So this is when people are denying what is true to them. This is what they should realize. This when this message came, African Speaker Bureau, I just looked up seriously, and 2 days later my first website was ready. So I've just immediately jumped onto it because it took me about just an hour or two to understand that's exactly it. So thank you, and then just move on and get it done and enjoy the ride. Yeah.
So it's saying no. So the saying no is saying no to those who think they know what you should do. And there's always going to be advisors who are going to come and say, no, Jay, you should do this. I think, and they mean well. But you need to get to a point in your life where you listen to the voice. That voice, the inner voice that tells you exactly, and you said it, knowing. There's a day you will know that I know that I know that I know.
Yeah.
So where are you going to get, I don't know, but I know I must do this. Where are you going to get the, I don't know, but I know I must do this. And it's interesting that the doors only appear once you, or the road appears once you start walking.
Yeah. I was once asked to contribute to a book which was about giving advice, and my answer was just my advice is to never listen to any advice, because you maybe need a stimulus from outside, but the other person doesn't know you. So therefore, the advice is, and this is contradictory to when I say that my advice is not to listen to advice, which is an advice. So don't listen to me. But you only have to listen to yourself. You know when it's coming. So it's just beautiful. If we look back to the seasons, which season did you maybe misread once, and what did it cost you?
Seasons are very interesting because I only came into understanding this season story last year. It was last year when it hit me, and I was going to Malawi to go and speak, and I had this summer, autumn, winter, spring, and then I realized that if we look at our lives, that's exactly how our lives goes. There's a season for everything, and if you miss that season, you're going to find yourself in an environment where, like a fish out of water. So here's a classic one. When I was at Alan Gray, I knew when I got that job, because I remember I got retrenched, spent a year at home. Then I got this job at Alan Gray. It's like, I should already, when I had spent a year away from home, I should have known then. And when I joined Alan Gray, I was never at home. In the sense, I realized corporate was no longer for me. I was there, but I was not there. I was there, but every time I had to do a strategic document or whatever, I was sitting there, and then I do it because I have to do it. And the challenge with that is that then your best does not show up. And if you're not careful, if you find yourself, a fish out of water becomes useless. But, purpose is very kind, because part of my stay at Alan Gray, that's when the real speaking really began, because I started doing these talks on money and identity. And I realized when I was on that stage talking about money and investments and whatever, I was on fire. But I was in the office and I had to do the normal office work, like, oh man, do I have to do that? Until at one point my boss recognized this, and she said to me, actually, Max, why don't we make you the evangelist for
Yes.
Alan Gray? You can go there and just speak. And at one point, I was speaking to 1,000 people
Wow.
a month around the country. I was burning, and I think about this is 2007, 2008. Was burning 120,000 rands a month on flights. And I knew when I was on stage, I was alive.
Yes.
When I was not on stage, it was like, oh. So purpose is fascinating in the sense, and these seasons are fascinating in the sense that they don't tell you that you have to somehow, there needs to be a consciousness of these things. And that consciousness might come through, some people discover on their own. It's like, others have to engage with people like myself, people like you. And it's in that conversation that their confusion starts making sense. And so when you and I keep quiet, when you and I don't get the message across, there will be more people who are in the wrong season. And if they stay in that wrong season long enough, they will destroy themselves and those around them. So there's a guy who's a GM somewhere, shouldn't be there anymore, doesn't want to be there, and now they're traumatizing their people.
That's what we often see in leadership, that they actually overstay their welcome. Max, now it sounds like a little bit like no one should work for a corporate. Of course, this is also not true, because many people find their purpose in corporate. So how can we give the strength to the people who see their corporate purpose, or see the purpose in being in the corporate, or cannot see the purpose outside? You, for example, when you just shared the example with Alan Gray, you had a boss who saw the purpose of you and used your purpose within Alan Gray. So how can we encourage leadership to engage with the purpose of the person without them making them run away and leave?
So that's probably the most important thing is in leadership. Leadership is about, one, knowing yourself as the leader. So if I know myself, I know my identity, I know my talents, and I know my purpose. Three things. Now, there's that. Then there's the purpose of the organization. And then we got to marry my purpose and the organizational purpose.
Yeah.
Then we hire people whose purposes and the organizational purpose match. If you do that, you got perfect organizations that are doing perfect work. The problem is most of us don't deal with that. We deal in degrees. What qualifications do you have? What did you study? But I often like to ask that question. So what is your purpose? If you cannot give me that answer, then maybe a better question would be, what's your vision?
True.
And that, and if you can answer both, because sometimes you can't answer both questions, then what I'm looking for is your ability to buy into the organizational vision.
Okay.
I see many leaders who are just in that corporate for the position and the perks, but they have zero connection to the mission and purpose of that organization. And that's why we find then people mistreating customers. People undercutting in processes and because they're not connected to the reason why that organization or the purpose and the vision of that organization. They are just serving their own ego. So you can, a fulfilling purpose, you can do it on your own. Most of us are going to do it in the corporate environment, because the corporate environment provides maybe the best environment for us to use our talents and gifts.
And it's also, I think, quite a safety. I met a person once that wanted to step out of corporate, and we tried to cooperate and collaborate with each other, but this person was completely lost without the monthly paycheck. Immediately when this person was back in the corporate environment and got the secured paycheck, this person could thrive again. So not everyone is born to live without a paycheck, I guess. It's a challenge that you have to be willing to face. And maybe it's not the season for you, or maybe it's not your destiny. So if you need more safety and you can't go through times like Max just described, or you just described, where you are battling for a certain time period or even longer, it's maybe not your purpose, or you have to find the next question or the next season.
Here's an interesting one, Jay. So when I look back again, connecting the dots, in my corporate, the years in corporate, had I understood my purpose, I would have used money differently.
Good, true.
So the saving, preparation and all that. So the problem is not always that it's because when we don't know our purpose, we're going to spend our money buying things we don't need. And then when the call for purpose comes, we go through unnecessary suffering. So I've looked back and I realized, no, the problem isn't that I was not meant to suffer. I just made bad choices, bad financial decisions because I didn't understand. In my mind, I was always going to be in corporate and I was moving up the corporate ladder. So, and then literally at the prime of my corporate career, purpose came knocking.
Yeah.
Had I managed money differently, the first 10 years of being on my own would have been fine. So I think we need to understand that. So part of this is understanding your purpose up front. There are people who are still in corporate today and they're slam bang in their purpose. So sometimes as speakers, we might be misunderstood to be suggesting that people must leave corporate. Yeah. No, that's all I'm saying is that you must be in an environment where you're fulfilling your purpose. It could be in government. It could be in education. It could be on a farm. The point is our callings are different. You could be joining Greenpeace.
Yeah.
That's purpose. Now, I won't join Greenpeace. I don't understand those guys. But you know what I understand? I understand purpose. I know they're driven by a larger purpose. Because the earth, it's amazing. The world is fascinating because the world, in order to survive, we are given human beings who care about the things that make us survive. There are people who care about animals. There are people who care about trees. Others care about nature and the rivers. And then there are those who care about education. There are those who care about governance. So the point is that sometimes because we are in an environment where we're making lots of money, we are being profitable, we think that the person who's fighting a corporate that's trying to do mining and destroying a specific heritage, that they're crazy. No, they're not. They're living their actual purpose. And that's very important that we communicate that clearly, that purpose will be lived in the environment that it's supposed to be lived. So for some, it's in corporate. For some, it's in the home. Yeah, you are raising the next Mandela. You are raising the next JFK. We don't, the point is that your purpose can be anywhere. My mother lived her purpose. She basically never left the village. But today I touch the world because my mother sacrificed her life.
Yes.
So although she never went to the cities of the world and she never had stages, every time I stand in front of people, every time I write something, my late mother and father, my grandparents, they are all touching people through me.
This is so true.
So purpose, some of us were blessed in the sense that our purpose is on stage. There's a lot of people whose purpose is behind
I
the
just
stage.
wanted to say this.
And because you are running this bureau, a whole bunch of us as speakers are going to reach audiences across the world. So the world won't see Jay, they will see Max, they'll see the next person. But the entire value chain is necessary.
Well, this is so true, and actually didn't want to speak about myself, but the people who are behind the stages and give us the microphone and the lighting and all the light and all the stuff. So they have the beautiful purpose of being sound engineer and making our voice heard. Just from the
Yes.
point of interview, I actually never
Yes.
wanted to be on screen. I actually, this is not where I always felt I belong, but I'm just following my calling. And I love these interviews. And I think you and I, we could sit until tomorrow together. And this will be the
Yes.
longest interview ever. So I hope that many people will see the wisdom that you are sharing. There was one point that you mentioned about the finances, financial maturity. I think this is also something that we need to touch and discuss. I once met an Uber driver just a short time after lockdown, and I said, "How is business going?" Which I often ask. And then he said, "Actually, I'm just testing business. I own these cars. I own quite a lot, and I own whatever laundry and this and that and the other." And I was actually once homeless, and as a 5-year-old, my family died, my father died, my mother died, so I was homeless, and I was adopted by a person, and she took me in, and she taught me about financial maturity. So I started the first 20 years of my life. I started to collect money and pay life insurance, and when I was 40, I left corporate and had enough money, and then I built my own companies. So that's something that we definitely also have to look at sometimes to help people to understand financial maturity.
And I think maybe that's a subject for another interview. We can actually talk about
Absolutely is.
money.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
to talk about.
Max, I so love this conversation. It is so lovely, and I think we could talk really for hours. So maybe we have another talk one day, or definitely we will have. And I hope that this really touches a lot of people. What you're sharing, and you're sharing your heart, and I just feel the impact that you can do in many other people's lives in corporate and outside of the corporate. Um, you often refer to the tombstone questions: family, society, nation, world. Which one is the hardest for executive to face?
So the tombstone question is, and I need to be careful how I answer this, because some people probably want to be remembered for leading. Let's pick an organization. They want to be remembered for leading Sanlam through turbulent times, and that's, for them, is fine. And I'm still hoping to go and interview some of the guys who have left corporate now. They had to retire because they time in to just find out where they're at and how they're feeling
Yes.
about it. I think you should never wait until you are forced to retire. I think, once you hit 55, you should be thinking about tombstone issues. And I know tombstone just sounds like death, so we could also call
Yes.
legacy. So tombstone is also about
Yes.
legacy. What do I want to be remembered for? Now, here's where the challenge is. You can't have it all. There are very few people who've been able to do it well. So if you do it for the nation, you probably do that at the sacrifice of your family. And when I think about that, I think of
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela. Yeah, he did it for the nation, but he lost his family in
Yes.
the process. And we have no idea what kind of damage the family suffered
So true.
because he was following his purpose. So a lot of times we don't see the sacrifice behind what we probably look as success. So every purpose will come at a cost. And that cost might be your family. So people get divorced. Kids who grow up, they don't have enough time, they can't spend enough time with the father. There's all sorts of things that come with it. And if you focus so much on the family, you could do that at the expense of your purpose. And it's very difficult to find the fine line. And so what I find with men particularly, they find it easier to sacrifice the family for their career. If you think about it, careers, it's just, I got to work. Whereas women, on the other hand, on average, end up sacrificing their careers for raising the family. And it's a fine line. What I find interesting, though, is that by the time you get to 55, if you normally married early and whatever, hopefully at that time the kids are done, and you have the freedom to really take
Uh,
risks. Because prior to that, maybe you can't
yeah.
take the risk because you've got family to feed. Not everybody can take the risk. But it doesn't also follow that purpose always comes at an expense, so you will pay a price for it. And it could be, and think about people working at SpaceX, you're doing these rockets and you must send them into space. And I can imagine how many hours people spend, research labs, there are people, I mean, there are vaccines and all sorts of things that we get today that people have risked their lives for it. If we think about simple things like things we take for granted, like security, we take it for granted. But someone has to be in the army. Somebody has to be in the police. Somebody has to be a detective. All these things. So, when we think about purpose, sometimes we glorify it. We think of it as stage, but I don't think it's stage. I just think that choose purpose. You're going to be significant in one area at the expense of another.
I'm listening to a very interesting person who very often goes back into our history to help us to understand why we are as we are today. If we just look back 10,000 years or like this, the men will go for the hunt. Their purpose, their success was to hunt. The success was then to find the deer. And that's probably still where the men feels from this millions of years that this was always the men who went out there, or usually, let's say, the men who went out there on the hunt and bring down or hunt down the deer to bring home the food. That's maybe one of the causes why it feels easier for a man to follow the purpose of bringing home the money, bringing home the success, bringing home the food, as for women who were, from this point of view, more for the family, for the home, for raising the kids.
It's interesting that the concept that and things are changing now. In fact, because society is changing, in the white community, you guys are ahead of us a little bit. We're struggling with that because
I'm not so sure about this. I'm not so sure about this.
No. So when I'm saying you're ahead of us, is that you've already entered that you entered the stage where women begin to be breadwinners and they're making more money, and you're likely to be married to someone who's making more money than you do. We're just starting, and I can tell you, it's for the African community, there is a huge struggle in that space because everything was centered around the man being the provider. And so, but we're transiting as a society. We are changing, and the way I like to understand it when I talk to people is always, if you focus on purpose, some of these things will fix themselves.
For me, this is inspiring to see the beautiful, wonderful women who are stepping out on the stages now in leadership. We represent a few of them. For example, Rapulang Rabana. Her rise is for me just inspiration. Dr. Aisha Pandor. So these women, these young leaders, are making so much. Bringing so much success and so much brings awareness to the stages and to Africa. I'm very grateful to see the women standing up in this community as well. And there will be many, many more. And I'm connecting to so many beautiful, wonderful, younger people who I like to work with and represent, because they can give so much that maybe men can't give us.
I know Rapelang. She's really,
wow,
she's awesome.
Absolutely.
In my view, as I study leadership and as I try to make sense of leadership, I actually believe that what's been missing in leadership has been women.
Yes, so true.
So leadership, as we know it, has been incomplete
Yes.
because we didn't have enough women in leadership. They bring a different temperament. They bring a different way of looking at things. And so I'm excited that women are actually coming into leadership. And when I talk to women, often I remind them that leadership is not given. Leadership is assumed. And as a young Black man growing up in corporate South Africa, I had to learn that you have to assume leadership. You see the gap, you see something that needs to be done, you get up and you do it.
It is truly exciting to see so many female leaders stepping up. And for me, it's always to point out a little bit to the young ladies as well. Don't become a man. Because many ladies, many women in leadership positions in the earlier times, they thought, or maybe think still today, that they needed to perform the same things that the men are bringing to the table. And that's not true. We need women, we need female energies in the leadership positions, and not just, how can I say, parroting what the males already are doing. So there's an interesting question that I say about the tombstone issue, or the legacy. If a 30-year-old vice president says, I feel like a teenager again, what's your 90-day prescription? How did you survive that feeling?
Well, so 38-year-olds feels like a teenager. Two things might be happening. One, he's VP, so then he's arrived. I mean, come on, he's, if you're 38 and you're a VP, you're doing very well. That could be the excitement. So, I probably would say enjoy the adrenaline, but after a while, you're gonna have to settle at some point and recognize the challenges that comes with it. The other side of it is that he or she might have just bumped into purpose, because purpose will make you feel like you are young.
And this is so true, because I just said earlier, I feel like 25 again. Age is a concept, and of course we have to find a way to stay healthy and to keep our body, the temple, the beautiful that we are given, healthy as well. Thank you for providing. But it is so true. When the purpose is there, I get up sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning because it's just driving, and I have to prepare my interview with Max, and I'm inspired to do this, and I can't sleep. That get all the cameras are on and so on. So it's just it feels a little bit like childlike, and this is so beautiful.
And it is so true. And I think maybe we don't do enough justice in terms of explaining to people the value of I always say, I don't want to say discovering your purpose. I want to say remembering your purpose. Because I always believe that as a child, you knew why you were here. And between the parents and education system, they pulled you away from it. It makes you come alive. It gets you up in the morning. You don't need to be motivated for purpose. You will get up in the morning. You will keep going. I've often wondered what kept Mandela going for 27 years. I've wondered about that.
Yeah.
And I tell people often, if it was me, I wouldn't even got into jail. They would have arrested me once in the morning. I'd have said, guys, I made a mistake. I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is this. It's not my purpose. Your purpose comes with the resilience you require. It comes with, it's like nuclear energy. It comes with its own nuclear energy that keeps you going. So people look at you and I wonder, why do you keep going? Why is it? And I've seen that in corporate as well. You got these executives that can work 18, 20 hours a day and do it flat out and keep going and keep going. That guy is not on a job.
Yeah.
That guy is one with that institution. He lives, breathes this thing. It's his purpose. And let's not make a mistake. Every corporate is necessary. It is necessary. We have the lives that we live because somebody dedicated their lives to corporate that make the goods, that do the research, that do all the stuff. And it's very important that we recognize the value.
You're referring quite often to Mandela and when the prison years. I think we need to understand this wasn't just 20 years in prison. It was the the daily punishment that these people went through, especially on prisons like Robben Island. If you read the people who read the autobiography, they will understand how they were treated there, and that this was a personal victory. I can't remember, after 3 or 4 years, that they finally could have long trousers, because blacks were only supposed to have boy shorts, you know what I mean, in prison. So they didn't get long trousers. I remember Ahmed Kathrada, he had a long trouser, and because he wasn't seen as black, and Mandela had short trousers. So they fought for that everyone, especially in the winter, at least get long trousers. And this was a personal victory for them, and how they slept on the cold concrete without a window and rain outside and cold. So it's not just the time, it's the personal dehumiliation that then went on. And this brings me actually to the pain equation that you also quite often refer to, the growth pain. Leaders and organizations grow to the leader's pain threshold. That's what you often say. How do you measure that threshold in a team or CEO? And how do you diagnose a team's threshold? And what's yours?
It is uniquely yours. So it's idiosyncratic. I think that's the English word. Every one of us has a pain threshold. Pain threshold simply says there's so much pain you can take, then you break. Now, the higher or the harder the task, the higher the pain threshold you will need. So imagine spending 27 years in jail. You must have a high, and then walking out of there, say, I forgive you all. That's a very high pain threshold. It's a uniquely high pain threshold. Then I look at a CEO of a global organization, which spans, different jurisdictions, different governments, and this guy runs this institution. He has to have a high pain threshold. Now, what's important around pain threshold is understanding that you can only achieve that which is within your pain threshold. And if you want to achieve more, the first step is to increase your pain threshold.
This is so true. This is deep. Wow.
So before I can get there, let's share the pain equation first. Then it's easier to explain. So the pain equation is very simple. Growth is equals to change. So every time you want to grow, you must change. That's the first part of the equation. The second part of the equation says change is equals to loss. Now, if you say that people, they want to change their lives. Yes, I want to change my life. Yes, I want to change my life. And the moment they realize, oops, it means they must lose some things. Then they're not willing to lose those things. So they don't change. But it gets deeper than that. It's not just a loss. Loss is equals to pain. So at a deeper level, what has been stopping a lot of people from changing their lives is their unwillingness to endure pain. And so often when someone tells me their goals, I always ask the question, what pain are you prepared to endure in order to achieve those objectives? And if you cannot answer that question, you're not ready. So you play that. You must be prepared to be, punched in the nose and elbowed. We don't know what happens in the scrum. The point is that ultimately, growth is equal to pain. And so pain then becomes our best friend. You and I can talk about our experiences in life, but everything we're able to do today is because of the pain that we've been through. Some of that pain is the pain of failure. Some of that is the pain of wrong choices. Some of that is the pain of making choices and choosing to go through pain because you know that at the end of the day, you will reap the reward that you want.
So from this point, give us one constructive struggle every manager should seek this month, and a destructive one that should be avoided.
Every time you wake up in the morning, ask yourself the question, where is my pain? If there's no pain in your life, then go and cause yourself pain. Because I've learned in life that you are either going forward or you're going backwards. You never stagnate in life. And the forward movement is always pain. And choose your pain. And then I learned another thing. If you don't cause yourself pain, Mother Nature will do it for you.
From this point of avoiding pain, give us maybe a story of your life where you avoided pain, which cost you momentum, and how your course corrected it. What behavior did you change that quarter or later?
So when I was 26, 27, I decided I'm going to do my MBA. So I signed up, paid the school fees in full, and I just never did it. I just, I was working. I made excuses about how busy I was, and obviously my work took precedent over any studies. Then, I kept saying, no, I'll do it next year. When things settle down, I'll do it. And then invariably what was happening is that my career was going upwards. So every 18 months or so, I would get a promotion. And the promotion requires that I need to learn how to operate at that level. I need to grow the pain to operate at that level. And so I don't have time to do my MBAs. And it's unbelievable that I didn't get to do the MBA until when I was 55.
Wow.
I was 56, would be 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I actually finally got back. I sat down, I put in the effort, and I got my executive MBA. In fact, at one point, when I was in corporate, I convinced myself that it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, I've achieved so much. What are they going to teach me?
Yeah.
Yet, if you ask me now, my greatest lesson from doing that MBA was not so much what I learned. It was discovering how much I didn't know that I didn't know.
It's always the question.
And that's why we must study. You don't have to do formal study, but I think we must read, we must study, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
That was the greatest opener that, wow, I would have died not even knowing. Don't put it off. Just now my principle is the Nike principle. I just say, just do it.
Yeah. Nike principle. I love it. Just do it. You often talk about leadership with soul, and now we can say leadership with soul and MBA. So it's about the identity, capital, and Ubuntu, leading from who you are, not what you do. What one identity practice would you recommend leaders do weekly to identify just themselves or to be who they actually are?
So I need to explain what identity capital is. Identity. So identity is about the your unique capacity to be the difference. Every human being is born with a unique capacity to be the difference.
I love it.
That's why if you were to look at your family, for instance, where you were born, and you look at your siblings, you're going to find out that each member of the family fulfilled a particular role in the family. There was the organizer, there was the entertainer. This is always this thing. So we are already born wired for making a difference. And so when a leader embraces their unique identity, or what I call it irresistible difference, when they embrace that and then they harness their unique talents in pursuit of a life of purpose, they create magic. Now, when I know my unique irresistible or identity capacity to be the difference, I also know what I'm not good at. Therefore, I now, if I'm a leader in a team, I will hire people who are strong in the areas that I'm weak. In other words, you hire for your weaknesses.
Absolutely.
If you're thinking of building a community, you also build a community of people who are strong in areas that you are not strong. That's the whole team. Together, each achieves more. So we don't hire you for a degree. We hire you for the difference that you bring. We don't hire you for your looks. We hire you for your
Yes.
capabilities. So I like to use soccer. Soccer is a fascinating thing. Lionel Messi kicks with his left leg. So if I'm a coach, I'm looking for another striker who kicks with his right leg. So now I have a perfect striking team. I don't go to Lionel Messi and say, listen, you need to learn how to kick with your right foot. Because if I do that, he will become a very weak player because he's not focusing on his strength. So leaders have to learn to focus, number one, on their own strengths and then hire for their weakness or staff for your
Yes.
weaknesses. If you do that, you build great organizations, you build great teams.
Yes. This reminds me of this little cartoon where a lot of animals are standing next to each other. Let's say a monkey and a giraffe and a hippopotamus, and then they say, "Now we climb trees." You know, not everybody is good in climbing trees. The monkey is definitely better than a hippopotamus to climb the trees. When we look at the identity conflict, what was your last identity conflict, and which practice did you use to reconcile it?
And I've been focused on this identity, talents, and purpose for so long that it has become my kind of, I talk about it all the time. Anyone who knows me, when they meet me, they will know. Some people even call me Mr.
Wow,
Identity. Good. Because when I look back to growing up, if you think about being a teenager and we go through that adolescent stage, that stage is an identity crisis. It is actually a 3-year-old does not have an identity crisis. A 3-year-old is very clear about who they are. And how you know is that when music plays, it's a fascinating thing actually. When music plays, a 3-year-old will dance. Not only will they dance, they will ask everybody to look at them. That's how confident they are in who they are. Then as they keep growing and they learn to be told that you're not good enough, you must be something else. Why aren't you like your sister? When you go to school, we begin to compare and contrast. By the time that child becomes a teenager, they are a mess. They're trying to fit into a world rather than fit into themselves.
Yeah.
So the highest cost of lack of identity is that you spend the rest of your life thinking you're not good enough. Einstein put it so brilliantly. He said, if you measure a fish by his ability to climb trees, then the fish will spend the rest of his life thinking he is dumb. This is the story of our lives. There's a lot of frustrated people in corporates today. They're totally frustrated. And the reason they're frustrated is because they're trying to be masters in a game that they're not wired for.
Yeah.
So you get the few guys who really fly through. If you look at all these successful people in corporate on average, they have discovered themselves. The problem is that people that succeed begin to force everybody to be like them.
That is so true.
So when you join a corporate, the first thing they do, they take you through orientation. Max, if you want to succeed here, this is how you dress, this is how you talk, this is how you walk, this is what you do. Now, when you do that, if I don't come to you as myself, I don't bring my best self to you. When you allow me to come to you as myself, I bring my best to myself. Now, you as a leader can say, Max, I can see this natural capability and I know exactly where to fit you in the team. So I've often said, if two people are alike, one of you is unnecessary. We don't need two of the same people. So if there's anything that we need to learn, is to differentiate ourselves. The good news is that you don't need a marketing guru to be able to differentiate yourself. All you need to do is to walk into yourself. Think about it. Mother Nature did it for you. You were born different. You were born already differentiated. So if you could just become yourself. So I said to someone the other day, I said, if someone doesn't like you for being you, there's nothing you can do about it. Just walk away. If a company does not want to employ you for being you, you are in the wrong company anyway. You must go to a place where you fit in. Then you will bring maximum benefit. Ubuntu is really about putting people where they fit in, where they can give you maximum contribution. That's Ubuntu.
Perfect. Wonderful. And Ubuntu is exactly the point that I wanted to speak about with you as well. So give us Ubuntu beyond the poster. So Ubuntu became the buzzword. In many other regional areas, they maybe have never heard about it. Give us one behavioral standard that proves a team actually lives it.
So if you think about Ubuntu, I am because we are. It's about interdependence. So a team that's living Ubuntu, you will see it from how they treat each other. They're going to treat each other with respect. They're going to, they're going to treat each other with integrity. They care about each other. They value each other. Now, those things, you can't force them onto a person. The reason why they value you is because they know what you bring to the table. They appreciate you because of what benefits they get from you. So when each person is contributing effectively to a team, he's respected for what he brings to the team. But I respect you for what you bring to the team because you're good at what I'm not good at. So I bring my best, you bring your best. So if you think about Ubuntu, a team that practices Ubuntu is going to be an excellent team. Excellence will be the theme. Because we got a group of people that are bringing their best for the greater good. A team of Ubuntu does not have one hero. The team is the hero. It's like SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
They don't talk about, the leader of SEAL Team. No. It's SEAL Team 6. Because they can't complete that mission if they're not together.
True. Maybe give us a 2-minute masterclass, turning unique talent into a team advantage. Practical steps, one story, not theory.
Unique talent. So every single one of us has a unique talent. And the best way I can describe how you can take advantage of this is telling you the story of a song, I Will Always Love You by Dolly Parton. Everybody knows that song. Dolly Parton wrote that song. I grew up on country music. We used to love that woman as she sang that song. By the 90s, the song had run its course. It was no longer a song. So kids who were born in the 80s and 90s couldn't care less about I Will Always Love You. In fact, they probably didn't even know who Dolly Parton was. Enter Whitney Houston. She does a remake of the song I'll Always Love You for the movie Bodyguard. And that song comes back to life. Makes millions of dollars. Now, it was the same piece of music. Two musicians, so they are both gifted in music, but the gifting is unique to each musician. And Dolly Parton put it so brilliantly in an interview. She said they approached her and asked her if they could use her song for the movie. And she said yes, and she forgot about it. She says maybe 3 years later or so, 3 years later, she's driving from the mall,
I just
going
wanted
home,
to say the story. Yes, it's so true, yes.
And she hears this booming voice of Whitney Houston sing. She said she was so overwhelmed with emotion that she had to park a car on the side of the road, and she shed a tear. And then she says, "Thank you, Whitney, for making my song." There's no better example. When we bring our talents to bear, we make everything great.
I heard the same interview, and and she said she was actually in tears when she heard it by surprise the first time in the radio in the car. So beautiful. Yeah.
So think about it. So if you think about it that way, that means if we have an organization that's been running for a long time and it's beginning to lose its shine, and we inject new blood, where we practice this thing that we are bringing new talent. In fact, we talk about that. We need to bring new talent. The problem, we bring new talent, but we don't allow them to take over the song. You see what Dolly Parton did? She sent the song to them. She didn't say, sing it this way, don't sing it this way. No. She just sent the song.
I love it.
And allowed the new musician to bring her own uniqueness to that song.
Oh,
And
yes.
voila, everybody benefited, including Dolly Parton. She's never cried while she was singing
Yes.
the song. She cried when somebody
It is.
else sang her song because the song reached a height she never even imagined. What does that mean? That means our ideas are brilliant. But if we could allow other people to also hold those ideas and remold those ideas, what we come out could be much, much better than if we just run with our ideas alone. That's how I would look at
this is so wonderful to allow the new voices to sing the song. I think this is just the music can unfold in much different ways. So wonderful. Bringing the music into the context, maybe give us a mentor and ancestor proverb that recenters you and how you translate it into team behavior today.
That's the one that I like the most. Ubuntu. I am because we are. Ubuntu is an African concept, really, because every village lives in that I am because we are. If I'm removed from the we, it's as good as I don't exist.
Beautiful.
There's a, and maybe that's for another interview. I think it's a Hebrew saying about if I am, then you are, but if I'm not, then you are not. If you think about it, every organization exists today because human beings exist. If you don't exist, I can't exist. Because in order to make a living, I need you. But if I don't exist, you can't exist, because for you to make a living, you need me. So effectively, we need each other as human beings to make this world work. So it's Ubuntu becomes the center of life. I am because you are. The Zulus have a nice greeting. They say, Sawubona, which literally translates, I see you. And you know how I respond when you say Sawubona to me? I say Sawubona. So effectively, when we meet, I say, I see you. You say, I see you.
Absolutely.
It's when we see each other that we're able to build life, families, community, and countries and nations. And we make the world a better place.
Max, one of the things that you're also very passionate about is leading up the forgotten half, the middle layer. You state middle management often breaks culture. Please explain. And I don't want to take too much of your time any longer, just maybe in 2 or 3 minutes.
Those are two different concepts. So leading up, which was the title of a book that I was writing, it has changed since the last time we spoke. It's no longer leading up. It's actually upward leadership. And the principle there is that we are trained on leading downwards. All leadership is about you manage people downwards. So you have a vision, you cast the vision, you motivate, you drive your team. That's what we learn. What we don't teach is how to lead upwards. What do I mean by that? If truth does not have a highway to travel from the bottom to the top doesn't know what's happening on the ground. And invariably, organizations fail because of that. I'll give you an example. The Space Shuttle Challenger that exploded, then they discovered that there were rings that froze because that the night before it was cold. Now, it turns out engineers had actually found this out earlier. And so the night before the launch, they tried to get to stop the launch. And so the argument that ensued until senior people say, you must put your management hat on. So truth did not travel well to the decision makers. And the decision makers made an error in judgment that cost the life of the 7 people on board. I think it was 6 astronauts and 1 school teacher. So truth must travel. And that traveling of truth means that me, as the one who reports to you, have to learn how to communicate my dissent or disagreement with what you are saying in a way that you are able to receive it. You and I probably grew up in the same sort of era where you could not tell your parent they're wrong. That was also another problem where truth could not travel to the top. Leading up or upward leadership is that as leaders, we must create an environment where information flows easily from the bottom to the top and from the top to the bottom. If you do that, then leadership is complete. When that doesn't happen, your leadership is incomplete. So that's one part.
Max, the second part was about breaking culture, middle management breaking culture, where we also have to understand the principle of respecting the chair, but challenging the issue.
Challenging the chair had to do with upward leadership or leading up. Because how do you challenge the chair while you respect the chair? That's how you get. So if you're a junior, how do you speak to authority without disrespecting the chair? Okay. And that's you have to learn. Now, culture, on the other hand, if you think about organizational culture, the executive sets the culture. They decide what the culture of the organization is going to be. The bottom of the organization actually implements the culture. So if I want to know the culture at Sanlam, I will know the moment I get to the security, how they treat me. Or if I phone their call center, or when I get to the main reception. So the bottom always implements the culture. But what we discovered is also that culture is normally destroyed in the middle layer, middle management. And this is the reason that happens. So the middle layer is often caught between the executive and the bottom. So you have pressure from the executive for results. You have pressure from the bottom, from the people that report to you. So on average, when I think back to my work in the corporate world, you could see that. The executive will come and talk to you about culture, they talk about values and all the stuff. And then you go to your boss you report to. They don't care about the value. Just give me my work or else you are fired. So often I encourage organizations to spend more money in developing the middle layer, the leaders in the middle. We need to invest a bit more. They have a lot of pressure and they're dealing with a lot of things. So they must learn, so middle layer must learn how to communicate with the bottom, and they need to learn to lead upward, which is difficult. They also need to learn how to receive feedback from the bottom, which is also quite challenging. So if we don't support them, then culture breaks down right there.
I think we could spend another hour just on this topic. This is marvelous because this brings us so many new awarenesses. But I know that you're running out of time and the next appointment is waiting on your side as well. So Max, this was such a pleasure connecting with you and listening to you. So I'm so inspired and so many things that come out from me and hopefully for the people that are listening to this talk as well. So Max, you are still available for bookings this year?
Oh, yes, I am available and willing. So thank you very much for having me. And I think going forward, maybe there's a lot of, because this was our first interview, I think that there's a lot of things that we just touched. Perhaps what we should do is do a series of these where we, for instance, let's talk just about upward leadership. Let's have a session where we talk about culture. Let's have a, just so that we give people at least a little more on each of the topics. And then, of course, when if they want one more, they must just call you.
Maybe we should do a masterclass out of it. A conversation between Max and Jay. Masterclass.
That also could be a good idea.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Max, so much. Thank you so much for the time for today. It was a pleasure. And reconnect to you soon. I'll love this conversation and I'm looking forward to our next one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.